I wonder if you could rewrite your public narrative from scratch. Is there anything that you would do differently?
Yes, I would ask people to tell the truth.
You're very measured about it. I mean, I feel like...
Let's go back to that engagement interview where Meghan made it sound like she was fully prepared for royal life and made the choice not to read anything.
And I think we were just hit so hard at the beginning with a lot of mistruths that I made the choice to not read anything, positive or negative. It just didn't make sense.
Yet, just a few years later, she painted a very different picture, suggesting she had been naive and blindsided. Also, she seemed remarkably well informed for someone who chose not to read anything.
What did you think it was going to be like?
I will say I went into it naively. Well, I didn't do any research about what that would mean.
You didn't do any research?
No. I've never looked up my husband online. I didn't fully understand what the job was, right?
Meghan didn't give it 5 years, even though she gave it 5 minutes.
Don't give it 5 minutes if you're not going to give it 5 years.
After multiple failed rebranding attempts, Meghan's had ample opportunity to shape her public image, and the result, her reputation has only declined. So when she blames a vague, faceless group she refers to simply as people, it no longer holds up. Audiences have seen enough to make up their own minds, and many already have.
Just be authentic. Did you see my baby mama dance?
I mean, stop it. First of all, can I just tell you, the timing of that, we were honesty and that, like...
A real, authentic, fun life that's happening behind the scenes. Just be authentic. Did you see my baby mama dance?
The question isn't whether Emma saw it. The real question is, how could she not? For someone who constantly talks about privacy, Meghan sure spends a lot of time putting herself front and center. The minute Emma brings up authenticity, Meghan immediately jumps in to mention the video, completely unprompted. And she can't wait for Emma to describe it, so she overlaps. Because of course, Meghan has to make sure her intentions behind the video are properly labeled.
That happiness and that honesty and that, like...
Leave it to Meghan to describe Emma's alleged experience of the dance video. It's interesting how Emma keeps repeating the word timing, while Meghan just laughs, because Emma's actually onto something. That dance video, and Meghan's choice to bring it up right then, is a textbook example of timed authenticity.
That with all the noise or whatever people do, there's still a whole life, a real, authentic, fun life that's happening behind the scenes.
Meghan does two things here. First, she conveniently dismisses any criticism as mere noise. Second, she jumps ahead and draws the conclusions for people, before they even have a chance to think for themselves. People are supposed to extract a real, authentic, fun life from a brief, staged moment.
I guess the difference is for us, it's just become so lasting.
Yeah.
So lasting.
And so just multi-layered. And I think...
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because that's what real friends do when they meet. They talk about how lasting, deep, and multi-layered their friendship is.
You haven't seen any of the questions ahead of time. Yeah. So my very first question, because I think in friendship it's so important, Meghan, how are you? And are you okay?
That's so kind. I am. I'm better than okay.
You are the most generous friend. I know you always make it about me. Today...
That sounded so natural and spontaneous. Now I'm totally convinced that Meghan didn't know any of the questions beforehand. By the way, when asking someone how they are is treated as a revolutionary question, it's a telltale sign that the conversation isn't going to be deep, or meaningful, or reliable.
I just have to say, you are the most generous friend.
This totally doesn't sound like a deliberate attempt to brand Meghan as relatable. No, this is something anybody would say, naturally and spontaneously.
The depth of our friendship.
Yes, and when two people are actually friends, they always feel the need to overemphasize how great and deep their friendship is.
Being able to be so authentically myself with someone who knows me in such a deep and profound way. When you were saying, like, do you want to just do like cozies and no makeup? I like the idea of like, okay, great. Let's let them see us. Yeah. See our friendship, see us, see what it's really like.
The less authentic a person is, the more they have to say they are. The more shallow a friendship is, the more the speakers have to say how deep and profound it is.
Yeah. See our friendship, see us, see what it's really like.
But that's the thing. People don't see what it's really like. All people see is how busy Meghan and Jamie are telling people that they're good friends. Meghan sounds so aware of performing authenticity, confidence, fun, that it ends up sounding completely inauthentic, like someone repeating the word authentic until it loses all meaning.
I go back to the authenticity, right? I wanted to do what felt authentic. What do I authentically, organically want to share? And so for both of us, it was just a really authentic and organic way to get to know each other.
Fun has become one of Meghan's go-to words.
Fun. And creatively, we worked as partners to really find a way for it to land and for me to be able to share it and just have fun. Fun.
When you have to say something is funny, it's usually because you know it isn't, or you know your audience doesn't think it is. Sir? I've finished the new video commercial for our company. About time. But I've worked overtime for the past. Never mind, sir. How would you like me to brand it on our website, sir? Right, that it's funny and authentic. But sir, if it's funny and authentic, shouldn't that be obvious? Are you questioning my authority? No, sir, please don't take it the wrong way. Good, because I'm the funniest and most authentic person you'll ever meet. You better start writing. Yes, sir.
Well, there are certain things that I've done just for my own self-preservation, but also that I've applied to the brand and for the people that are incredibly supportive. I know, the question can be around naysayers, but if you really see the groundswell of support that surrounds the brand and me, that's what I feel the most, and that's what I appreciate. But by design, I also recognize that a lot of those people aren't going to my page to see negativity. And so not just protecting myself or the people that work with me, but also the supporters, so I don't have the comments section on. That's a choice.
This is a very strategic opening. Self-preservation is a loaded phrase. It immediately frames Meghan as under pressure, someone needing protection. And that's the key. The term is so general, it could cover almost anything. By using a word this expansive, she creates a justification almost impossible to challenge. Notice how quickly she categorizes the landscape. Critics are flattened into naysayers, a vague, dismissive term that trivializes all forms of criticism, whether substantive or thoughtful. Meanwhile, she introduces the counterweight.
Groundswell of support.
The narrative is simple, almost mathematical. Overwhelming support, marginal, dismissible negativity. That framing allows her to minimize the scale and legitimacy of criticism by linguistically shrinking it. Naysayers sound small, almost trivial, whereas groundswell suggests something organic, powerful, and widespread. The imbalance is constructed through language.
Groundswell of support that surrounds the brand and me, that's what I feel the most, and that's what I appreciate.
By structurally excluding criticism, of course, that's what she feels the most. It's not virtue, it's control.
And so not just protecting myself or the people that work with me, but also the supporters, so I don't have the comments section on.
This is a subtle reframing. Limiting interaction isn't just about her. It's extended outward, presented as a protective measure for her audience. But think critically. If the supporters are by definition supportive, what are they being protected from? The answer is implicit. Disagreement, dissent, criticism. In effect, it removes friction. It creates a curated environment that amplifies praise while silencing critique. This isn't a brand that listens. It's a brand that decides in advance what it will acknowledge.
And so when I think of all of you and what you're experiencing, I think so much of that is having to realize that, that industry, that billion-dollar industry, that is completely anchored and predicated on cruelty to get clicks, that's not going to change. So you have to be stronger than that.
You have to be stronger than that, Meghan says, framing this as a matter of personal resilience, rather than anything tied to what she herself has chosen to share publicly over the years. What's essentially a question of public exposure and responsibility is reframed as empowerment. She also shifts into direct address, you, positioning herself as someone offering guidance to an audience. The effect is to generalize a situation that's highly specific to her, making it sound universal, but it isn't. The level and nature of backlash she receives is tied to her own public statements and actions, not generalized gossip. There's a notable irony here in describing a billion-dollar industry completely anchored and predicated on cruelty to get clicks, given that the series Harry and Meghan, the Oprah interview, and numerous other high-profile projects have also generated significant attention and revenue by focusing heavily on criticism of Harry's family. In other words, the same attention economy being criticized is also the one being actively participated in. It's noteworthy how criticism is often reduced to a single category of cruelty, regardless of what it involves: factual disagreement, editorial framing, or public response to her own statements. That simplification allows the substance of criticism to be avoided entirely.
I dropped something off.
All of a sudden, you dropped off this gift basket with ice creams, homemade strawberry, and you're doing something that adds value to my life.
Yeah.
And
I knew when I dropped off that strawberry, it wasn't even preserves. It didn't have time to set. I just made a quick one because we had a lot of strawberries at the time. And I heard what you were saying and how many people were there. And I just knew that even if we never talked about it, that it would brighten your day in what was probably a really overwhelming day. That made me feel excited at the possibility of being able to have some offering.
This is a classic case of humble brag, meaning a modest or self-deprecating statement, a statement whose actual purpose is to draw attention to something of which one is proud. Here, the modest statements are that Meghan didn't even have time to set, that she made a quick one, and that she was excited to have some offering, implying that it wasn't much. In theory, phrasing it like this draws even more attention to Meghan's admirable and impressive qualities as a person.
In what was probably a really overwhelming day.
This is dramatization to make Meghan's deed sound even more selfless and inspiring.
It could have been the day that they were going to give up. And if I can come in with a little sprinkle of fairy dust just by wearing a bracelet or doing something, and that changes the course of their business, that's a huge honor to be able to have that kind of impact for someone.
Yeah.
Someone that most of the time I won't even know.
yeah,
Which, in theory, makes Meghan's efforts seem even more admirable, that she's helping people she most of the time won't even know.
It could have been the day that they were going to give up.
It could have been lots of things. This is more dramatization to make Meghan's help sound essential. The key characteristic of humble brag is that it's deliberate, and here the deliberate pretend modesty is found in Meghan's minimizing language in form of the adjective little and the adverb just.
The little sprinkle of fairy dust just by wearing a bracelet.
The implication being that if Meghan can create that kind of impact by doing so little, she's even more extraordinary than most people realize. But way to make it sound like the honor is hers, and that she isn't merely glorifying herself.
That's a huge honor.
As a noun, fairy dust refers to a hypothetical substance with magical properties. Fairy dust isn't real, which is ironic considering that Meghan's trying to convince Jamie and the audience about how real her impact is. And true to style, Meghan doesn't wait for the audience to draw their own conclusions. No, she draws the conclusions for them, literally underlining her impact.
To be able to have that kind of impact for someone.